What insult have your parents said? That is stuck in your head as an adult? Half man half mattress my old man when I wouldn't get out of bed. Edit. For those asking. He was being amazing and funny. 1990. I was 16 and had to get up at 4:30 for work. He got me up and out the door every morning. A nice wee story. You can't even laugh right. My mom, in a weird moment I thought we were bonding. There's something inherently extra evil when someone tells you your joy is wrong. Not a parent but a grandparent. I was adopted when I was 12 years old. My parents were both drug addicts, so I was in and out of foster care most of my life. My adopted mother's father turned to me on Christmas Eve when no one else was around and said, "My daughter should have never adopted you. She should have let you stay on the streets where you belong." He got nicer as he got older and sicker, but I couldn't find it in myself to forget what he said even almost 10 years later. Went to the funeral for moral support but was indifferent about his passing. What did I do to deserve a fat kid? My little brother was drowning. I tried to save him but also almost drowned. We got rescued by a neighbor. My mom told me that they should have left me in the pond. I haven't spoken to her in many years. Like a half a century ago. My mother and I were talking and the topic of someone's eye color came up. I forget who. I sincerely asked, "What color are my eyes?" "They are sort of a gray-green." She looked at them closely and told me. Sort of a shit brindle. I still bring that up from time to time. Mom was talking to Dad about me while I was right there. I was bullied in high school and it had an effect on my grades. While discussing my education she said, "Look at him. Can't you see there's nothing in there? Just look at how he sits there. He can't do this. He's not capable of more. This is it. He's nothing." It gave me a drive and motivation. It also gave me a constant need to prove myself. Edit. I never imagined this to get so much replies. For the people wondering, this happened almost 20 years ago and I have now found peace with what she said. My mom has a lot of mental issues but she tries her best. She's made a lot of progress and is still working on battling her inner demons. And in the end, she has since done a lot more good than bad to me. I will never forget what she said, but I no longer hold it against her. People shouldn't always be reduced to their worst moment. "You're so annoying," said to me as a young kid while I was expressing enthusiasm over some new interest. Later my father complains I never tell him anything. "I sometimes wish your seizure killed you when you were 2 years old." I'm a waste of sperm apparently. Not sure what else they're doing with their sperm but. Okay. Edit. This is my most liked comment. Dad, when I was about 10. If I kill you, I can make another one just like you and no one will notice. In 7th grade, I was learning how to write better poetry thanks to an awesome teacher. I was so proud of a collection I made. So I let my mom read it. She asked me, "Do you need to be put in a mental asylum?" I was so upset, and as I was growing up, I didn't share any of my art with people. Regardless of the medium. Even now, I still hear how serious she was when she asked me that. My mother said lots of things like that. I'll just talk about one of the most memorable. While I went to go inside the corner store, she stayed behind in the car. Outside the store was a kid that had a crush on me. He grabbed my ass and I bitched him out. My mother saw all this. In the following days and weeks she basically accused me of being a slut, implying that I somehow invited it. She tried convincing my father of this. Told her coworkers about it. Everything except being a mom, infuriated that someone touched their daughter like that. My parents divorced when I was young and they hate each other. My mom would call me my dad's name when she was really upset. What makes it worse is that I confided in her that I never wanted to be like my dad. She used that ammunition against me. The only reason I had kids is to serve me. I only wanted one boy and one girl, bitch had 3 boys. She told me I was acting just like my father when I would get upset. I would just get kinda pissy and sulk. He would go on rampages and scream and hit and throw things. He pushed her down the stairs once. I would never lay a finger on my current partner. The worst part is I look just like him. I was wondering if my mother always expected me to turn into my dad. I prove her wrong every day. Edit. Thank you to everyone who shared their own stories. It's good to know I'm not alone. Also, to the people suggesting I had previous partners I would actually abuse. I can understand the wording could have been better, but how dare you?" My father said to my mother when she finally left him. "The only one of the 3 kids that has done any good is the middle one. I'm surprised that the other 2 aren't in jail flushed." I was an only child and lonely. When I asked for a sibling, the response was, "If you want to know why we don't have more kids, go look in the mirror. You're too goofy. Guys don't want to date a girl who's funnier than they are." Not exactly an insult, I guess, but it did stick with me. When I was approximately 10 years old, my mum once said, "If I could go back in time and make sure I never gave birth to you, I would in a heartbeat." Never forgot it. Talked to her about it a couple of times years later, and her responses ranged from, "That never happened," to, "Oh yeah, and I suppose I'm just the worst mother ever," and finally, "Yeah, but I didn't mean it. You know that. Messed me up though tbh." Another one was, older sibling. Was the only child we actually planned for. The rest of you were accidents. I don't think it was intended as an insult. But being told your entire existence was an accident as a child kinda stung. Not me, but a friend after her dad had died. She told her mom that she missed her daddy. I say daddy because she was roughly 8 at the time. "You miss him so much? If you ever say that to me again, I swear I'll chain you to his gravestone. You sound like a pig under a gate." I was approximately 10 and working to expand my vocal range. To this day, I stop singing when others are around. The one that lives rent-free though is. Now, find someone else to take care of you. Thanks for the help, I guess. I think I was like 2nd grade and my dad called me manipulative. You will never amount to anything in life. To be honest, I was expecting only few answers. Thank you all for sharing. I'm really sorry you all had to hear what you have heard from your parents. I'm really glad some of you got to prove them wrong, and I hope you all gain the confidence you need to recover from this. All the best. I love you all. My father is very good at maths. Especially at doing it in his head. I always was self-conscious about that. One hike in the mountains he gave me a math problem and I went totally blank. Tried to frantically solve it in my head but couldn't. Finally he said, "You once were intelligent." That's long gone. Starting a monologue about how dumb I am. I was 13 at the time. In my end 30s we had a chat about chemistry, which I excelled in at school. That led to other subjects and it turned out he wasn't really good in any subject we shared. Except math. I was in most, except math. There are so many things I really don't remember most of them. Once my stepmom called me a lying sneaking little shit BC. She thought I stole her melatonin. When she just used it all and forgot Abbott. But the thing that I think about a lot is my dad once when I was like 10 to 12. I don't remember what it was about. I just remember him poking me in the chest with enough force to knock me down. He said, "You're such a piece of shit. I can't wait until I get to kick you out," and spat in my face as I was laying on the ground. That was the man who was supposed to be Superman to me. I was supposed to sit on his shoulders to see a parade or something. I was probably 14. It was 97 or 98. And I was walking up the stairs one afternoon. My dad was on the landing. Looked at me. Paused and said, "Your forehead. It's gettin' zitty with it." I've told him about how it's something I still think about now that I'm an adult. He has zero recollection of something I remember so vividly. The axe forgets, but the tree remembers. Not really an insult. My brothers and sister lived out in Utah. We are live outside of Cincinnati. My mom, dad and myself drove to Utah because my sister was getting married. The first night of being settled in, we went out to dinner with my older brother's fiancée and her family. My oldest brother was there with his wife. And my sister was there with her fiancé. Again, we were there for my sister. Yet the first night we were there, going to dinner with my older brother and his soon-to-be wife and in-laws took priority. We are sitting at this restaurant. And my mom straight up blurted out my older brother as her favorite child. My oldest brother. My sister and I just looked at each other just like slowly nodding going like, "No shit. Mom. We know. Doesn't make it okay for you to say it out loud." Though. I was 14. So that was about 20 years ago. Still fucking stings. "You're the reason your dad died. He died of leukemia." That one always stuck in my head and has done for almost 20 years. That my sister and myself will never be more than a hole for a man to fuck. We both shrugged this off as kids, but as adults we both realize how fucked up that is to put on your daughter's view towards relationships with men. Needless to say, we both struggled with setting boundaries in relationships. It took a lot of inner reflection on our parts, my sister and myself, to build self-esteem and learn boundaries with men. Thanks Mom. Face with rolling eyes. My sister won a ton of toddler and baby beauty pageants. My dad for a while didn't believe I was his daughter. He told me I wasn't pretty enough to be his daughter. Well, joke's on you, Dad. We look just alike. My younger sister and I do too. Lol. Killed my self-esteem. But I think it's kind of funny now. I hate all my kids. I wish I could line them all up and shoot them. My mother. To me when I was about 15 because I forgot something at home and we were gonna be late to a church meeting. Very Christ-like of her. Through an unfortunate event, I contracted herpes right before I went home on spring break. I was naive and had no sex ed, so I didn't know what was going on, and I was super sick with a 104.5 degrees Fahrenheit fever. I had to tell my parents. My mom called me a whore. We'll never forget that. Thanks Mom. Note. Their Mormon upside down face. Don't be so simple. Do you think that looks good? You're a slob. You're lazy. Stop. You are doing it wrong. Just go away. You lack motivation. You're wasting your potential. I wish you were like your cousin Maryam. For context, Maryam died at birth. Grin. My mum told me I was a little shit and then later told me no matter what she says she always loves me. Somehow that stuck with me for 30+ years. You're not skinny. My mom when I mentioned wanting to dress as Elle Woods for Halloween when I was 10. Yeah. I was overweight as a kid, but that sure as hell didn't motivate me. To this day, whenever I see an outfit I'd love to wear, I hear that line in my head. Parents. That shit doesn't go away over time. Your kids just learn to put it in the backs of their minds, but hear you me. They still remember. When I was 14, and struggling with depression, you're just a psychopath who will die alone cause nobody will ever love you. It's taken quite some time to accept that this isn't true, but being told I'm selfish and arrogant for speaking about things I might like. Or how I'm feeling when I was a young child. Growing up it was more speak of when you were spoken to, as you had no real reason to speak otherwise unless you were going to risk being screamed at or physically hurt. And I only ever had sentences based around me saying sorry. Thank you and please. As an adult now, even when someone wants to listen to what I have to say, I still occasionally unintentionally cut myself off and stop talking out of fear. And the fact that someone is actually willing to listen to what I have to say, but I'm working through it, greater than laughing face. All your friends will be more successful than you in life. It turned out to be true. My father said to me before my children were born that I will kill my kids with those vaccines. Joke's on him. He hasn't met my 2-year-old twins. They are polio-free too. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Not really an insult, but as what I'd hear any time I had a negative emotion. Having emotions was grounds for punishment. Now whenever I'm sad I hear that voice in my head. Why can't you just be normal? I loved art, film, writing and performing. I listened. Now I'm 46. Stuck in a civil service job that I loathe and unhappy. Wish I hadn't listened. So many things. About how I'm a waste of space. I'm a horrible person. I'm lazy. Comparing me to other people's children and how I'm not as good as them. It still continues. Don't be so sensitive. Even till now as an adult. And I just suddenly realized why I don't feel safe being emotionally vulnerable with my parents. I asked my parents why they gave my sister a lot of money for college and not me. My dad said, "We never thought you could finish. I have a doctorate now and no student loans ever. You're the biggest mistake I ever made." My mother when I was 5. I'm 32 now and it's been the undercurrent for our relationship ever since. Constantly wondering if anything I've achieved or struggled for is something she's genuinely proud of or just relieved to say I wasn't a total failure on her part. My dad, very recently, told me, 33F, that I don't have a career and that I was only hired as a charity case. The hardest part is that my dad is normally really supportive and kind, and this was not said in anger. I am a project MGR at a real estate development company that my Phil owns. I have a university degree in a related field, landscape architecture and urban planning, and project management experience from a previous job. I never planned on working for my fill. I am getting paid about 1/2 of what I could be making if I worked for another company. I am sticking it out because my husband and his brothers deserve to inherit the company. Their dad uses the inheritance as a way to control them, and they have put in so much free labor despite never being paid by the company and working FT in completely separate careers. I'm worried my Phil's semi-recent drinking habit, mixed with his unrelenting narcissism, is going to lead to him squandering the business, so I'm staying to keep tabs on it. I know no one is going to read this. It still feels good to get off my chest. Dad, you're fat. Well, you're ugly and I can lose weight. Grow up. Be a man, as I, a 9-year-old, am in the floor getting punched in the stomach, chest, shoulders by a 45 years old. Apparently, it didn't hurt that bad, or something lol. You're turning out exactly like I was. This was during a screaming match when I was 15 and had just got caught smoking. She did add several details of what she did and assumed I was doing. When I turned 18 I called her. Said, guess what, Mom? I'm not pregnant. I was a cutter for about 10 years. When my dad found out, he put a razor blade in front of me and told me to finish the job. Ungrateful child when I left her house because I was done with her abusive bullshit after 25 years. 5 years later I told her she was the most dishonest and untrustworthy person I've ever met. Saying I have depression because I don't have enough faith in God. And that me crying and being upset was annoying. You're too inquisitive. You should ask fewer questions. Pretty terrible thing to say to a child, tbh. Po ECC Porta Neper Climb. Albanian for, you wander like a fart in an air conditioner. Not so much an insult, but was simply told they love my sister more than me. I mean, it made sense looking at how different we were treated, but to hear it out loud was pretty devastating. It must have hurt me more deeply than I realized, as it still sucks thinking about it 15 years later. You're so full of shit. Your eyes are brown. This was in a joking manner. So it's funny to look back on. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.